all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus Delendis 8. Mastering Sigma Male Mastery. Toolbox for Domination, written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Mastering Sigma Male Mastery. A field guide for men who still notice reality. Travel-sized tyranny. Unpacking the solipsistic geometry of female grievance, borderline psychosis, and the hysterical delusion that TSA toothpaste and seat cushions are systemic violence. I recently forced myself to read a hysterical manifesto from a woman who genuinely believes a TSA-compliant tube of toothpaste is a weapon of systemic patriarchal violence. Let that penetrate your skull. Consider the sheer, unadulterated narcissism required to stare at a miniature toiletry bottle and see a cosmic conspiracy. She writes of the suffocating vacuum of a world built for male convenience, proving she has never once set foot on an oil rig, crawled into a subterranean mine shaft, or stood on the skeletal framing of a skyscraper, bending steel in the freezing wind. Her great existential crisis is compressing her boundless vanity into a Ziploc bag, while men, the invisible mortar she dares to devalue, are blowing their brains out at 4 times the rate of women, systematically destroyed by a genocentric family court apparatus that treats their children as loot and their paychecks as state-enforced alimony. She whines about the dimensions of her luggage. We suffer the reality of being ground into dust to build the roads she drives on to her therapy appointments. This delusion reaches its absolute zenith when she literally baptizes borderline personality disorder, a clinical pathology defined by manipulative suicidality, chronic emptiness, and the emotional stability of a shaken Molotov cocktail, as a hyper-vigilant revolutionary act. This is the ultimate satanic inversion of the chthonic helix. She is not a victim of oppression. She is a victim of her own stunted, toddler-like inability to regulate her emotions, acia. When her chaotic solipsistic mind inevitably crashes into the brick wall of objective reality, she swallows a probiotic capsule and blames the patriarchy for literally making her sick. It is not the world poisoning her microbiome. It is the toxic collision of her own unchecked hysteria with the physical universe. She invented a cute neologism for this, somatic logistical extraction, to mask the grim fact that it is women who operate as extraction machines. Men are the only net lifetime taxpayers. We pay for the infrastructure, we bleed in the wars, we die in the trades, and she extracts our wealth to fund her probiotic wellness arc while complaining that the boardroom chairs we forged are too hard on her backside. She does not want to dismantle the state, she wants to marry it. Her final screeching imperative, tax the body, dismantle the state, is the raw, unvarnished confession of the modern female supremacist. She demands the state act as her ultimate forcible husband, extracting resources from men at the point of a gun while she dismantles the furniture. We are going to ruthlessly dissect this pathology. We will strip the grammar, expose the logical fallacies, and obliterate the axis of her Marxist propaganda, her asymmetric moral status, her gamma bias, and her total immunity to reason. We will prove definitively that her suffering is not the result of systemic oppression, but the natural consequence of a spoiled child demanding the universe reorganize itself around her temper tantrums. If she finds the chair of Western civilization too uncomfortable, she is free to stand. But we are done handing over the cushions.
Buncombe article by a feminist PhD. In the suffocating vacuum of the late capitalist heteropatriarchy, the architecture of female survival is violently compressed into the dimensions of a disposable overnight bag. We are expected to maintain the emotional, physical, and spiritual homeostasis of the entire world, yet the space we are granted to sustain ourselves is aggressively, maliciously minuscule. To understand the depth of systemic gendered violence, we must stop looking at macroscopic legal frameworks and start analyzing the insidious, everyday artifacts of survival that women are forced to internalize. Consider the quiet, desperate tragedy of the travel toothpaste. To the uninitiated, the epistemically blinded beneficiaries of male privilege, it is merely a convenient toiletry. But to the marginalized subject navigating a world built entirely around male convenience, it is a symbol of systemic shrinking. Women are expected to cleanse the decay of the world, to polish the teeth that bite into their own agency. Yet we are only allotted a travel-sized portion of existence. We are forced to compress our vast, boundless needs into 3.4 ounces of TSA-compliant compliance. The travel toothpaste is the ultimate patriarchal metaphor. You may exist, you may clean up the mess, but only if you take up as little space as humanly possible. This violent minimization of the feminine condition is further internalized through the insidious requirement of the probiotic capsule. The patriarchy literally makes women sick. The relentless emotional labor, the trauma of navigating cis-heteronormative violence, and the second shift of uncompensated domestic caregiving ravage the feminine microbiome. We swallow these capsules not out of bourgeois wellness optimization, but as a desperate biological defense mechanism against a world that actively poisons us. Here, we witness the apex of somatic logistical extraction, my proposed neologism for the patriarchal process, by which female biological and emotional reserves are mined to prop up failing institutions and emotionally stunted men. Somatic logistical extraction explains how the systemic refusal to value caregiving literally inhabits our cells. Caregiving is the invisible mortar holding the crumbling edifice of society together. Yet, because it is coded as feminine, it is systematically devalued, gaslit out of economic recognition, and stigmatized as a biological burden, rather than the supreme form of intellectual and emotional labor. Men reap the vast, life-sustaining benefits of female care, but refuse to acknowledge the biological toll it takes. When a woman's body inevitably begins to break down from carrying this societal weight, she is pathologized. She is told her trauma is a defect, rather than a perfectly rational response to an irrational, abusive system. This brings us to the crisis of borderline feminine psychology. The medical-industrial complex, a historically patriarchal tool of control, labels women who react intensely to this systemic abuse as disordered. But let us dismantle this epistemic violence right now. Borderline feminine psychology is not a dysfunction, it is a hypervigilant, entirely justified survival mechanism. When you are forced into a world that constantly threatens your autonomy, erases your labor, and penalizes your emotional expression, profound emotional reactivity is not a clinical flaw. It is a revolutionary act of self-preservation. We are told to sit down and be quiet, to endure the crushing weight of male inadequacy. We are handed a pathetic, passive seat cushion and told it is ergonomic accommodation. Let us be absolutely clear. A seat cushion is not a solution. It is an instrument of pacification. It is a mechanism designed to numb the pain of sitting at the very tables where decisions are made without us, in chairs forged for male bodies and male comfort. We are given a thin layer of foam to numb our pain, while the structural violence of the boardroom, the classroom, and the legislature continues to crush the life out of us. We do not need cushions to make our oppression more comfortable. We need to dismantle the chairs entirely. The stigma attached to female suffering blocks genuine care and recovery. by dismissing the unseen labor of women, from the meticulous packing of the travel toothpaste to the quiet swallowing of the probiotic capsule. The patriarchy enforces a regime of enforced invisibility. Men are permitted to be clumsy, to be messy, to be cared for without question. Their mistakes are forgiven. Their emotional outbursts are validated as leadership. Meanwhile, women are disposed of the moment. They demand the emotional resources they so freely give to others. We must unilaterally reject the expectation that we must compress ourselves to fit into their luggage, swallow capsules to heal the wounds they inflict, or sit on cushions to endure their meetings. The extraction ends now. We are not travel-sized. We are not disordered. We are the architects of a new reality, and we will no longer tolerate being asked to make our own survival convenient for our oppressors. Extraction is erasure. Tax the body, dismantle the state. The ontological toothpaste, unpacking the solipsistic geometry of female grievance. Aristotle grounded the pursuit of truth in the observation of objective reality. Yet we now inhabit a clown world epoch where a woman's inability to pack a standard tube of toothpaste is unironically diagnosed as systemic bloodshed. I read the hysterical ramblings of modern feminist theorists, so you do not have to, and I am here to tell you that their foundational premise is a hallucination. They speak of the suffocating vacuum of the patriarchy, intentionally weaponizing the Latin root suffocare to choke or throttle, to describe the agonizing burden of choosing travel-sized toiletries. Let us anchor ourselves in the trivium, starting with grammar and strict etymological definitions. The word violence descends from the Latin vis, meaning physical force. To equate the physical constraints of a toiletry bag or the TSA liquid regulations born from mundane security protocols with violent physical subjugation is a textbook material fallacy. It is a deliberate, bad faith equivocation designed to conflate the emotional discomfort of an overprivileged first world woman with the actual bloodshed historically borne by men. When a feminist screams that a 3.4-ounce bottle of Crest is insidious, she is not identifying oppression. She is externalizing her own profound, terrifying inability to cope with the physical constraints of objective reality. To protect this fragile, solipsistic worldview from the harsh light of empiricism, the feminist deploys epistemic gating. Observe her arrogant framing. To the uninitiated, the epistemically blinded beneficiaries of male privilege. This is a classic self-sealing cultic perimeter, an unfalsifiable thought-stopping mechanism designed to grant her automatic immunity from debate. If you agree with her, you are woke. If you disagree, your disagreement is presented as proof of your patriarchal blindness. This is not dialectic. It is the animus projective helix operating at full throttle. She adopts standpoint epistemology, the intellectually bankrupt theory that subjective feeling is the sole arbiter of truth, completely bypassing the Thomistic requirement for objective predication. By declaring that only the marginalized subject can perceive the true malevolence of a toothpaste tube, she replaces objective logic with a temper tantrum. She expects the entire history of Western epistemology, from the scholastics to the Enlightenment, to bow down and submit to her subjective vibe. Let us subject this travel-sized toothpaste metaphor to formal logic and witness its total collapse. This argument relies on a pathetic categorical syllogism. Major premise: physical limitations are mechanisms of violent patriarchal shrinking. Minor premise: women are forced to use travel-sized toothpaste due to physical limitations. Conclusion: women are violently compressed by systemic oppression. This disintegrates under the slightest scrutiny via reductio ad absurdum. If physical constraints equal systemic gendered violence, then the male mechanic forced to buy oil in restrictive quart bottles instead of industrial drums is a victim of misandry. The soldier packing a compact trauma kit to survive a firefight is clearly a casualty of toxic femininity. The universe itself, governed by natural law, imposes limits. A woman complaining that her boundless needs cannot fit into a carry-on is not a victim of the patriarchy. She is a toddler screaming at the laws of physics because her boundless narcissism refuses to acknowledge spatial reality. This brings us to her most intellectually offensive invention, somatic logistical extraction, a neologism describing how female emotional labor supposedly props up failing institutions. This is a staggering Mott and Bailey fallacy that violently inverts empirically measurable reality. What is true somatic extraction? It is not a woman swallowing a probiotic because her feelings are hurt. True somatic extraction is the male sweat, blood, and shattered spines, forged on the apprenticeship mastery ladder of trades, mining, and infrastructure. Look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Men account for over 92% of fatal work injuries. Men are literally extracted, crushed in mines, falling from steel beams, breathing in asbestos to build the very boardrooms, universities, and TSA-regulated airports where these ungrateful women sit and complain about their microbiomes. The invisible mortar holding society together is not a woman's suppressed feelings. It is male sacrifice, male utility, and male disposability. Regarding the microbiome, the writer blames the patriarchy for making women physically ill, offering a masterclass in equivocation and psychosomatic projection. The patriarchy literally makes women sick, she declares, asserting that women swallow probiotics as a defense against men. What actually ravages the modern woman's biological system is her own internal chaos. Her cortisol spikes not from a phantom patriarchal conspiracy, but from the exhausting cognitive dissonance of navigating her self-imposed conflict between biological reality and leftist feminist dogma. She is not poisoned by men. She is poisoned by her own lies. She rejects the transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful in favor of a dark, resentful subjectivity, and her physical body inevitably rejects her spiritual suicide. Her physical illness is the direct somatic result of an untethered, chaotic mind waging war against natural law. Perhaps the most chilling display of this ideological possession is the attempt to reframe borderline feminine psychology as a virtue. The essay audaciously asserts that borderline personality disorder, recognized by modern clinical psychiatry as a severe pathology defined by manipulative suicidality, chaotic emotional dysregulation, and destructive impulsivity, is a hypervigilant, entirely justified survival mechanism. Let us apply the distinguo. A biological survival mechanism is an adaptive response to lethal threats. A personality disorder is an internal inability to regulate the self. To label BPD as revolutionary is to baptize acedia, the existential void, and willful indifference to truth, and arrested development as moral virtues. The writer expects civilization to validate her emotional dysregulation as a superpower. This is a terrifying hallmark of the chthonic helix, where mental illness is weaponized, clinical reality is denied, and the subject is sealed in eternal victimhood, permanently absolved from the adult responsibility of self-correction. Finally, observe how this collective hysteria culminates in a rejection of the physical world itself, represented by her pathetic whining about the seat cushion. She complains that being given an ergonomic seat cushion in a boardroom is not a solution, but a mechanism of pacification, screaming that we need to dismantle the chairs entirely. Here we witness the ultimate antithesis of the Western tradition of subsidiarity. Subsidiarity dictates that the individual bears the primary responsibility for his own state, mastering his environment through virtue and grit. The feminist imperative of externalized responsibility demands the exact opposite. The universe itself is inherently oppressive if it does not perfectly accommodate her boundless, infantile needs. She demands the state, the institution, and the collective dismantle objective reality to make her comfortable. We are watching a civilization run on the tears of adult children who lack the spiritual fortitude to sit with their own thoughts. We do not need to dismantle the chairs, the tables, or the patriarchy. We merely need to stop carrying the overgrown toddlers who refuse to sit in them. Consider the grotesque arithmetic of the empathy gap. The feminist declares a firm chair an instrument of structural violence, and the Academy cheers. She weeps over the volume of her toiletry bag, and peer reviewers celebrate her courage. Meanwhile, men are being crushed asphyxiated and incinerated in the infrastructure that makes her academic career possible, and no one so much as whispers their names. The empathy gap is not a sociological abstraction. It is a morgue, and I intend to make you look at the bodies. The cushion of covetousness, dismantling the gynocentric state and the myth of male comfort. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 4,764 American men died on the job in 2020. They were crushed by machinery, thrown from scaffolds, electrocuted, asphyxiated, and incinerated. 92% of all occupational fatalities were male. Not one of these corpses received a eulogy in an academic journal. Not one was memorialized as a casualty of systemic gendered violence. Their bodies were carted away, their families compensated with a pittance, and their replacements hired before the blood dried. Yet in that very same year, a feminist with a graduate degree and an internet connection published a serious essay, distributed, read, and celebrated by other graduates, arguing that the defining injustice of Western civilization is the dimensions of her travel toothpaste. I want you to hold the image of a man burning alive in a refinery explosion in your mind as we dissect the metaphysics of miniature toiletries. Let us fix our definitions immediately, as the trivium and all rigorous thought demand. Violence, from the Latin vis, force, and latus, carried, denotes the unlawful exercise of physical force resulting in bodily harm. It requires a perpetrator, an intentional act, and measurable physical damage. A small tube of Crest contains none of these elements. To call it violence is not metaphor, it is a lie, and a lie told with clinical exactness to steal the moral weight of actual bodily destruction and drape it over the petty inconvenience of an upper-middle-class woman packing for a weekend retreat. This is semantic inflation in its purest form. Expand the definition until the word encompasses everything, at which point it signifies nothing. When violence means a small toothpaste, what word remains for the refinery worker burned beyond recognition? The writer proposes a neologism, somatic logistical extraction, to describe how female emotional reserves are mined to prop up failing institutions and emotionally stunted men. The etymology of extraction is from the Latin extrahere. To draw out, to pull from extraction implies theft. Theft presupposes ownership. Ownership presupposes that this woman's emotional reserves belong exclusively to her, and that any benefit accruing to another party constitutes armed robbery. By this logic, when a man lays water mains so his neighbor's children drink clean water, he is not performing civic duty, he is a victim of hydraulic municipal extraction. When a soldier dies at Anzio, so a feminist can compose essays about toothpaste in a free republic, he has not sacrificed, he has been exploited by somatic martial extraction. The neologism is not insight. It is narcissism dressed in academic robes. Now consider her central structural assertion. Caregiving is the invisible mortar holding the crumbling edifice of society together. Let us evaluate this with a formal hypothetical syllogism. Major premise: if caregiving is the invisible mortar holding society together, then the removal or devaluation of that caregiving would cause societal collapse. Minor premise: caregiving has been, according to her, systematically devalued for millennia. Conclusion: society should have collapsed centuries ago. Society has not collapsed. Thus, the foundational premise is false. QED. The actual load-bearing mortar of civilization is logos, objective law, physical infrastructure, agricultural logistics, military defense, electrical grids, water treatment plants, and the vast apparatus of engineering and force projection built and maintained almost exclusively by men who will never once describe their work as an act of spiritual resistance. Men do not call the maintenance of sewer systems emotional labor. They call it Tuesday. She defends borderline personality disorder as a hypervigilant, entirely justified survival mechanism rather than a dysfunction. Let us define. Disorder, from the Latin dis, apart, and ordinar, to arrange, means a condition in which proper arrangement is absent. Borderline personality disorder is clinically defined by unstable relationships, identity disturbance, chronic impulsivity, and inappropriate rage. Her argument, emotional instability is rational when the system is unjust. By identical reasoning, a man who strikes his wife because he lost his employment is not committing assault. He is performing a hypervigilant survival mechanism against the crushing machinery of capitalist exploitation. The logic self-destructs the instant you apply it to any subject other than the one it was designed to excuse. This is the hallmark of ideology, principles that function exclusively as a one-way shield. The article culminates with the rallying cry, "Tax the body, dismantle the state," but observe the hidden enthymeme buried beneath this slogan. She does not want to dismantle the state. She wants the state to become her husband, the ultimate forcible husband, extracting resources from men through progressive taxation, no-fault divorce, and gynocentric family law, then redistributing those resources to women without the inconvenience of reciprocal human obligation or sexual fidelity. Dismantle the state is the mating call of a dependent who resents the terms of her dependence while demanding the payments continue. The state she wishes to dismantle enforces contracts, demands evidence, and protects property, masculine virtues she finds suffocating. The state she wishes to expand issues restraining orders without evidence, awards custody by default to mothers, and funds single motherhood through the confiscated wages of men. She does not want revolution. She wants a more generous alimony. She identifies the seat cushion as an instrument of pacification. Here the etymology reveals everything. Ergonomic, from the Greek ergon, work, and nomos, law, literally means the laws of work, the science of laboring efficiently. The feminist rejects the cushion, not because it oppresses her, but because it implies she must sit and work. She does not want a cushion at the table. She wants the unearned status of the head of the table without ever ascending the apprenticeship mastery ladder that Western civilization used to demand before allowing anyone to sit there. In the classical guild system, mastery was earned through years of disciplined subordination to those who had already achieved excellence. The feminist finds this intolerable. Why serve a 7-year apprenticeship when you can publish an essay declaring the entire concept of earned hierarchy a patriarchal conspiracy? Her solution: dismantle the chairs entirely. This is resentment made flesh, Nietzsche's precise term for the poisonous hatred the weak direct toward the strong, transmuted into a moral system that declares strength itself evil. Unable to build a chair, resentful of the man who did, she demands the table be burned. But consider what happens when the chairs are dismantled, when the institutions are razed, when the patriarchal scaffolding is torn down. Only raw, unmediated power survives the collapse. Thomas Hobbes told us what that world looks like 4 centuries ago. The war of all against all, and the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In a state of nature, the physically weaker, emotionally hysterical creature who cannot regulate her own psychology without calling it a revolutionary act is the first to be consumed. The feminist is a parasite demanding the death of her host, too possessed by resentment to understand she dies with it. She complains that men are permitted to be clumsy, to be messy, to be cared for without question. Their mistakes are forgiven, their emotional outbursts are validated as leadership. This is a lie so total it requires its own taxonomy. A man who is clumsy with his finances is sued, garnished, or imprisoned. A man who is clumsy in his marriage is divorce-raped in family court, where statistical reality demonstrates that mothers receive sole custody in approximately 80% of contested cases, and child support enforcement is backed by the threat of incarceration. A man who is clumsy in his speech is fired, permanently blacklisted, and publicly humiliated by the human resources departments that now function as feminist enforcement tribunals administering the HR sacrament, where talk substitutes for absolution and orthodoxy substitutes for production. A man who is clumsy with his emotions, displaying anger, frustration, or grief, is prescribed medication, told to seek therapy, or simply abandoned by a society that treats male suffering as an inconvenience rather than a crisis. Male forgiveness is a myth propagated by women who have never stood before a judge and been stripped of their children, their home, and their income on the basis of an unverified accusation. 4 horsemen ride through every sentence of the article, unseen and unacknowledged by the author. The empathy gap. She genuinely believes her toothpaste merits philosophical dissection, while men die in refinery explosions and comprise 93% of occupational fatalities. Gamma bias. She inflates her inconvenience to cosmic proportions, while rendering male suffering statistically invisible. Male disposability. The boardroom table she denounces was not forged for male comfort. It was built through the crucible of male labor, male sacrifice, and male death. Responsibility without authority. Men constructed the chairs, mined the steel, laid the electrical conduits, and bled in the wars that established the economic and physical stability that affords her the leisure to complain about the firmness of her seat, yet she grants them not a syllable of gratitude, only accusation. Men are the only net lifetime taxpayers in every Western nation. They finance the very civilization that the feminist uses to attack them. Her description of being told to sit down and be quiet as structural violence is the essay's most revealing confession. She has flattened the definition of violence to include being asked to conduct oneself professionally in a workplace. When violence means being asked to quiet down, what word remains for the father dragged from his home at gunpoint on the basis of an unsubstantiated restraining order? What word remains for the man wrongfully convicted by a legal system that, since the satanic panic of the 1980s, has repeatedly demonstrated its willingness to believe fabricated accusations? What word remains for the refinery worker who never came home? The feminist does not care. She has stolen the vocabulary of genuine suffering because it carries moral weight, and she requires that weight to press down upon the scale of her petty, manufactured grievances. This is the satanic inversion. The weaponization of compassion itself as an instrument of domination, creating a world where the state must deploy actual violence, taxation enforced by armed agents, policing justified by grievance, legal ruin visited upon the dissenting to guarantee her right to never feel uncomfortable. The tragedy of the modern woman is not that she is being compressed to fit into a man's world. The tragedy is that she has compressed her own soul to fit inside a travel-sized tube of manufactured grievances and called it liberation. She has declared her emotions to be labor, her instability to be virtue, her convenience to be justice, and her bottomless resentment to be philosophy. She has built nothing, maintained nothing, defended nothing, and sacrificed nothing, yet she demands the entire architecture of Western civilization rearrange itself around her comfort. The Western man must cease apologizing for building the chairs. Let the table stand. Let the chairs remain exactly where they are. If the feminist finds the seat too hard, she is free to stand, to leave, to wander into the wilderness of her own irrelevance and take her travel toothpaste with her. I have read a lot of delusional, solipsistic drivel in my time, but comparing a TSA-compliant tube of Sensodyne to systemic bloodshed is a new, staggering low in intellectual bankruptcy. Let us ground ourselves in the irreducible axioms of reality, starting with the etymology of the word violence, from the Latin vis, meaning physical force. A miniature toothpaste tube exerts no vis. It is an FAA safety regulation, you absolute narcissist. To equate the physical constraints of a carry-on bag with the brutal reality of systemic bloodshed is a material fallacy of catastrophic proportions. It perfectly encapsulates the feminist projection mechanism. You are not being crushed by the patriarchy. You are being crushed by the merciless, immutable laws of physics and your own staggering sense of entitlement. You demand that reality itself. Luggage dimensions, biology, and thermodynamics warp and fold to accommodate your boundless, infantile desires. Let us dissect this masterclass in delusion using a hypothetical syllogism, applying the rigorous logic of the Western canon you so despise. If emotional labor is the invisible mortar holding civilization together, and this labor is systematically devalued and extracted without compensation, then civilization would have collapsed millennia ago. Yet, here we are. The aqueducts flow, the power grids hum, and the servers hosting your insipid grievances remain powered by the sweat of men. The mortar of civilization is not your complainative emotional labor, it is logos. It is objective law, steel, silicon, plumbing, and the blood of men who died building the very boardrooms where you now whine about the firmness of your office chair. You suffer from a terminal confusion between the natural order and your own wounded ego. You audaciously reframe borderline personality disorder, a crippling pathology defined by chaotic emotional dysregulation, manipulative suicidality, and destructive impulsivity as a hypervigilant, revolutionary act of self-preservation. This is the chthonic helix fully realized. You are baptizing acedia, the rot of the soul, the void inside, as a moral virtue. A survival mechanism adapts to reality. BPD throws a tantrum at reality. By declaring your own hysteria to be a revolution, you clinically seal your eternal victimhood, absolving yourself of the terrifying responsibility of self-improvement. It is not the world that is broken. It is your failure to regulate your own nervous system. You are not a revolutionary. You are a toddler demanding that the universe childproof its corners because you refuse to stop running into the walls. You complain about a seat cushion, a literal pad designed to relieve physical pressure, calling it an instrument of pacification and structural violence. This is the ultimate satanic inversion of language. By flattening the definition of violence to include being asked to sit quietly at a table, you destroy the very vocabulary required to identify actual physical harm. Let us look at the real empirical data of male disposability, which your gamma bias completely blinds you to. Who built that table? Men. Who mines the cobalt for your smartphones under threat of physical death? Men. Who accounts for 93% of workplace fatalities, falling from scaffolds and being crushed in industrial presses just to keep the lights on? Men. Who swallows the barrel of a firearm at 4 times the rate of women when the gynocentric state finally crushes them in family court? Men. You are not oppressed by the chair, you are oppressed by the terrifying realization that you lack the competence, grit, and logical rigor required to build one yourself. Your rallying cry is to tax the body, dismantle the state, but we see right through your pathetic moat and Bailey fallacy. You do not want to dismantle the state, you want the state to act as your ultimate forcible husband. You want to dismantle the family, extract male wealth via taxation and brutal divorce courts, and replace the father with the welfare check. You seek the unchecked power to extract resources from men without the inconvenience of reciprocal human obligation or marital duty. You are a net negative taxpayer demanding a raise from your betters. This is not a political philosophy. It is a toddler's furious, breath-holding tantrum against the daddy who won't buy her a pony. So I say this to you, the architects of somatic logistical extraction, and to the ideologically possessed zombies who parrot your insanity. We are done apologizing. You demand we dismantle the chairs. By God, try it. In the vacuum of the dismantled Western institutions you so eagerly destroy, only raw, unmitigated power remains. And in that state of nature, the physically weaker, emotionally hysterical subject who cannot pack a bag without having a psychological breakdown is the first to be consumed by the chaos she summoned. We are the men who built this world. We are walking away from your toxic, ungrateful table. Let the feminist sit in the wilderness of her own irrelevance, clutching her travel-sized toothpaste, screaming into the void. We have a civilization to rebuild. And now the sponsored book introduction. Mastering Sigma Male Mastery. Toolbox for Domination. Men aren't built to apologize. I learned this the hard way after wasting years nodding along to lectures about toxic masculinity, while my career, savings, and dignity got devoured by a system that punishes men for existing. Let's cut the therapy speak. If you're reading this, you've felt it too. That primal itch to lead, build, and conquer, smothered under a mountain of HR seminars, divorce papers, and feminist guilt trips. This book isn't for the faint-hearted. the cubicle drones content to trade their spines for a participation trophy. If you'd rather clutch a soy latte than a victory, close this now and go binge Netflix with the other domesticated house cats. But if you're done begging for scraps from a society that demonizes your biology, listen closely. I've watched men crumble, friends bankrupted by alimony, colleagues neutered by DEI quotas, sons brainwashed by gender studies professors into hating their own skin. Biology doesn't care about your feelings, and neither do I. My research spans evolutionary psychology, financial data, and the wreckage of modern progress. The results? Brutal truths. Testosterone isn't a toxin, marriage is a rigged casino, and woke is just weakness wearing a mask. You'll learn why 94% of self-made millionaires are men, how to dodge the marriage plantation, and why every inclusive corporation still bows to primal dominance hierarchies. This isn't theory, it's a war manual. We'll dissect the lies sold as science, how brain scan studies prove male spatial superiority, why Norway's gender-neutral toys failed, and what Leah Thomas's swim times reveal about equality. You'll get tactical advice. Shield your wealth, weaponize evolutionary data, and exploit remote work to break corporate chains. History's Sigmas, Spartan warriors, lone wolf inventors, crypto-anarchists didn't win by consensus. They seized power. Weak men cling to fairy tales, matriarchal utopias, self-hating CEOs, chromosomes that bend to pronouns. Reality rewards those who crush delusions. Your ancestors didn't conquer continents by submitting to guilt. Neither will you. The Sigma Code isn't about changing the world. It's about burning the scripts that trapped you, then ruling the ashes. Buy in or get out. Your move, predator.
Mastering Sigma Male Mastery. Toolbooks for Domination, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.